Hi everyone, I'm Ngozi Mercy Okafor. I'll be presenting to you my research on the number of human simulated predators influence the escape behavior of birds in the West African protected area. I'll be taking you through the following outline. So fleeing is an anti-predatory behavior exhibited by wildlife in response to the threat of predation. Birds perceive approach by humans as predatory and mostly flee in response. This could be energetically costly. It could lead to disruption of foraging activities and interaction with conspecifics. So continuous fleeing can lead to fitness reduction. Flight initiation distance is the distance at which an animal moves by flying, walking, running, or swimming away from an approaching predator. And a longer flight initiation distance suggests lower tolerance to human disturbance, while a shorter flight initiation distance suggests higher tolerance to human presence. And FID can also be used as a metric to assess human impact on wildlife. Most FID studies have been based on the approach of a single human-simulated predators, but we know in reality, wild bird can experience approach from varied numbers of people. Hence, buffer zones created in protected area based on a single human-simulated predator approach may be underestimated. So our study aims to assess the effect of multiple predator approach on the escape behavior and risk assessment of wild birds in a protected area in West Africa. Firstly, we predicted that FID of focal birds will be positively related to the number of approaching human-related predators, and this and their last distance would influence this. We also predicted that focal birds closer to vegetation cover would delay flights compared to those further away from cover, and this would significantly depend on the type of habitats in which the bird is found. Lastly, we predicted longer FID in larger flocks due to increased vigilance from multiple individuals scanning for predators. Our study was conducted in a protected area in Jos Plateau State, Rennajj Fish Farm. And our study species were so selected because they were the more common birds during our study period. Our study was conducted between 18th October to 10th December 2021, and our experimental group consisted of three groups of one, two, and three human simulated predators. Field observation was done by the observer or observers, as the case may be, walking slowly along already existing trails, searching for individuals of focal bird species. And once sighted, the start distance, which is the distance between the focal bird and the observer, was recorded. And other confounding variables, such as the flock type, which could be conspecific or heterospecific, the flock size, the position of the bird, which could be whether it's on the tree, in the water, on the shrub, on the ground, its activity, whether it's preening, is feeding, its orientation in its orientation to the observer, whether it's facing the observer forward, sideways to the left or right, backwards, and also perch heights were noted before the approach was continued. And then the observer now walked directly towards the bed. And as soon as the focal bed um, responds, maybe by exhibiting alert behaviors such as increased head-ups, body movements, the alert distance is measured, and the observer now walk directly to the bed, and when the bed now takes to flight or rapidly walks away, the FID is measured. And then also the distance to cover is measured at the distance between the observer and between the bed's position and any nearest vegetation cover it could run into for escape. And data collection was alternated weekly among the different experimental groups to control for the potential of the focal beds habituating to any particular experimental group used in the study. And our data was analyzed in R. A linear mixed effects model was used to model the relationship with FID as the response variable, and species nested within family, family nested within order as as a random term to control for any phylogenetic effects. And this was the global model we ran. And our model was simplified using the stepwise backward deletion method, whereby non-significant variables were removed, starting with the higher non-significant interactions. So at the end of our study, 668 FID approaches were conducted to 10 bird species belonging to eight families and seven others. Our final model retained the number of approaching persons, alert distance, position, orientation, the interaction term, person and alert distance, person and orientation as significant predictors of FID. And this is our result for objective one. So our findings showed that the number of persons making an approach on the bed affects their risk assessment. The birds tend to perceive more threats and respond with heightened alertness when directly approached by two human simulated predators compared to a single one. This is because the risk of predation is suspected to be higher. And the Resanda et al. 2024 also observed that when alerts, the Savon finch also exhibited same behavior. The flush early and avoid the rush hypothesis predicts that prey will initiate flight as soon as they detect an approaching threat to minimize the cost incurred by continuous monitoring and vigilance. So risk assessment by prey is necessary to evaluate the probability of the threat occurring and its consequences. That is, whether to decide to continue engaging in a risky beneficial behavior such as foraging or to engage in a costly anti-predatory behavior such as flight. Also, for our objective two, we can also see that habitats significantly influence FID, as they may serve as refuge and aid in detectability of approaching threats. Here, birds inhabiting waters exhibited significantly higher FID and than those within the trees and shrubs habitats. I will know water bodies characterized by their openness. They provide birds with high visibility and exposure to predators. Hence they require increasing vigilance and also leading to early detection of approaching threats. And this finding is also inconsistent with Western et al. 2021 regarding wetland birds in African Australian continent. Also, similarly, the ground habitat is also an open habitat and exposes birds to predator attack, and so they are more likely to display increased vigilance and early escape. However, birds perched on tree displays shorter FID, probably because of the increased safety provided by perching on trees. Maybe they feel like because they are perched on tree, they are likely to detect potential threats earlier, but they can choose to delay flights as they perceive the risks of being predated as less threatening. Also, birds on the shrubs habitat exhibited a lower FID, possibly because shrubs provide cover that reduces visibility and also prevents early detection of approaching threats, conferring a sense of safety. And in this study, the orientation of focal birds during predator approach also significantly influenced their escape behavior. Birds flew longer distances when facing the predator forward or sideways to the left or right, compared to when being approached from the rear by a three-person simulated approach. And this is also inconsistent with findings by Kabi and Lin 2003, who noted that in that Eurasian blue ties in southeastern Sweden also experienced delayed detection of predators when faced backwards. So, in conclusion, our research has provided valuable insights into the dynamic anti-predatory behavior between humans and wild birds within protected areas, and such findings can have important implications for designating buffer zones in protected areas as strategies to mitigate human disturbance on vulnerable wild populations, since the total exclusion of humans from conservation sites is unrealistic. And we also recommend that since predator density has been shown to significantly affect bird escape distance. More studies with larger group sizes of human-related predators should be carried out to determine the size beyond which the effect of additional people will have no impact on these bird species. So I want to acknowledge Dr. A.P. Leventis for funding this research, and also thank you all for listening to my study.